Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So there's some new MISC equipment on the way, and at CitzenCon they revealed a new ship and I was quite pleasantly surprised by what I saw. MISC are a very interesting company. They make some excellent ships and some mediocre ships. Now they have you covered for most things, whether it's exploration, cargo hauling, performance division with Mirai, with their Furies and the races that they have. So they pretty much, MISC has an answer to your particular problem. However, the Freelancers for me have always been a bit frumpy, but they are excellent ships. Okay, I've really enjoyed the Freelancers as a ship. Its design is very good. I was always just sort of off-put by their sort of aesthetic appeal of the MISC Freelancers. The whole series of ships are excellent cargo haulers. They're really functional and they look really cool. But now we have something really special to look forward to, and that, of course, are the Starlancers. Okay, so this year at CitzenCon we got a nice little glimpse into the MISC Starlancer Max and TAC. My first impressions were, yes please, thank you very much, because these look incredible. What they've managed to do is breathe life into a ship design that was, again, the Freelancers looking a bit frumpy. So where do I place these ships? My initial thoughts were, okay, so this is a Freelancer's bigger brother, but a younger brother to the Odyssey. And we're getting 3 variants, which is super duper cool. First things first, aesthetically, the Freelancers, the Starlancers look absolutely superb in my humble opinion. Okay, I really enjoy how these ships look. They look incredible. Like I said, what they seem to have done is they've taken the Freelancer and gone, okay, well, we need to make a bigger one of these, because these are big ships. 600i in size is how they compared it, which is a very nice size. 4-man crew, so that was a huge tick in my box straight away. But aesthetically, they just look incredible. They look like how I would imagine a spaceship should look. Very much with the Odyssey, and why I love the Odyssey, that is now transferring over to these Starlancers, because they are freaking cool. So we have the Starlancer Max, which is a cargo running variant, and then we have the TAC, which is like a combat AC-130, just dripping with all the guns and missiles, which obviously everybody wants their ship to be dripping in guns and missiles. So the fact that we're getting variants, the fact that they've managed to cleverly engineer some of the space internally to fit different roles was awesome. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw these ships, because I was just like, yes, this is the look that we want our MISC ships to adopt, and they look absolutely phenomenal. Okay, so the Max is the Starlancer Max is the first ship we're going to take a look at in detail, because it's the ship that offered up the most detail during CitzenCon. So we are going to get into it, into as much detail as I could find. Now I should say, first of all, sorry for this video taking so long, but I actually did this video once already, and just an unfortunate thing happened with copyright infringement, so I had to do the whole thing again. So sorry for the delay, but we're here now and everything is wonderful, because we're back talking about ships, and ships of space are freaking cool, and the Starlancers are also freaking cool. Okay, so the Starlancer Max, let's talk about its implication for a size, 600i ship size is very impressive. 232 SCU with 96 SCU stored in the vehicle bay forward stroke cargo hold. It sort of doubles up, so that's quite impressive. Really like that cargo walkway, as you can see on screen now. I think that is a very nice touch. So what they've done is carried that over from the Hull C, where you can walk through the spindle, and they've gone, well, why not throw that in the Max? And I'm glad they did, because it's a nice little sort of unique feature to be found on board. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in operation, right? The other plus is, of course, the Starlancer Max is being released within the next few weeks, and of course I will be immediately reviewing that ship, taking my time with it. I won't review it in the PTU, I never do. It will be in-game when everyone can have it, and I can have my honest opinions with it when there's less bugs that might possibly affect the ship. I want to give it a fair shot. So the Starlancer Max, not only does it look really cool and have reasonable SCU for a ship of its size, it's also fairly well armed, considering it's a cargo hauler, right? And they did mention that they are going to keep that letterbox view. I have no issues with people keeping the with them keeping the letterbox view. It's not as bad as people make out, I think, or initially make out. Once you're sat in the cockpit, if you've been in the whole C or the whole A, it's really not too bad at all. And I actually think it adds a little bit of space flavour to the ship, so I'm all for it. Let's get into then some of the exterior details, because this is where it gets super cool. First up, I love the shapes on this ship. I think it's very free-flowing. They've sort of got rid of that hump that the Freelancers had. It's a bit more smooth. We had some winglets on the top. Obviously, the rear turret is blocked off there. That might be an issue, but with all the firepower the pilot's got, maybe not. And we know that blades should be with us at 1.0, should be, so there are options available to you. The cargo grid, I think it's awesome. The letterbox view, really not an issue for me. It just reminds me of Cylons, and Cylons are also cool. Thrusters look incredible. They've added windows because everyone wants to see out planet side. You know, I echo that thought, because if you've ever sat in an Origin 400i or a 600i and you have those massive windscreens at the back and you can peer out and just enjoy the beauty that is Star Citizen, it's a great feeling. You know, it's very immersive, and I think it's a nice touch that they've added those. We also have missile racks, plenty of weaponry I've discussed, and we haven't even got to the TAC yet, so there is a lot going for this ship. I think it looks incredible. Really was impressed, because I was always struggling to envisage how they were going to sort of upgrade the Freelancers. You know, maybe we'll get Mark IIs, and I imagine if we do get a Mark II variant of the Freelancers, they will look similar to this. Very sleek, very sort of updated, modernized, right? And then they just need to do the cutlasses and bring them up to speed, maybe give them a Mark II. Keep the originals as legacies. You know, I think that's a smart move, but yeah, very impressed with how this ship looks. But what we need to do now, of course, is study the interior. So that's what we shall do. Okay, so at CitizenCon, we got a glimpse into this ship's interior and the design layout and how it's all going to operate internally. I've broken it down, added some labels, and we're going to talk our way through this because it's quite interesting. I've also adjusted some of the contrast to make it pop a little bit better. So, pilot seat on the left, indicated by the yoke, of course, and then obviously we have the co-pilot. Fairly standard stuff, okay? Nothing too untoward there. As we make our way through the neck of the ship here, we have our two support stations with the remote turret operation as well, so you're going to be able to operate the turrets from here. 4-man crew, as previously mentioned. Really well designed, I think, having the turret stations behind the cockpit, and even more well designed by having the escape pods just behind that, because it's more than likely you're going to have your crew or yourself, if you're soloing, of course, up front operating the ship, right? So the fact that the escape pods are only 2 doors away, depending on where you're sitting, is a very smart move. I think that's a non-issue at all. Really like that. You know, for speed of saving life, having them up front is probably the best place to have them. As we make our way down then, we approach sort of midsection of the ship. We have our entry ladder. I'm not sure if that goes down to the ground. I think it does. Adjacent that, however, is of course a elevator, and that does go down to the outside world as an entry point. I think the ladder would do the same. I can't see any reason why not. Moving further down the spine of the ship then, this is top deck, I should add. We have the mess hall with a space pool table, because of course we want space pool, because who doesn't want space pool to play pool in space with all that space in the mess hall? Yeah, that happened. Yeah, so that's cool. Nice, very generous kitchen, I have to say. And then to get even more generous for you and your crew, you are honoured with an ensuite crew quarters. Everyone gets like a king-size bed and their own hygiene facilities. That is a very, very nice touch from MISC. Thank you very much. Everyone likes their privacy. I was not expecting that, but it's a very welcome addition. I don't think you're going to have too many complaints about people having, I've got too much privacy. Who says that? Nobody says that. So very, very nice indeed. The fact that every single crew member is going to have a dedicated ensuite. No captain's quarters, I don't think, but it's probably irrelevant anyway. Then we have the interdeck elevators. So this is from A to B. Basically, if you want to get from ground floor to top or top to bottom, you can use these said elevators. They do not go outside, so they're interdeck elevators only. Making our way towards the rear of the ship then, we have our engineering room, which looks awesome. Very nicely, this ship is very nicely laid out, is my first thoughts. We have engineering. They did say that some components will be scattered. Obviously, there's going to be fuse boxes that aren't all going to be in engineering, right? But most of the components I would have thought would be in the engineering room, and it completely makes sense. So what happens now is we transition from top deck to bottom deck, like so. And what we have here is the vehicle ramp, and it's an extra storage for your cargo. So you can either put a vehicle in there and or storage. This area holds 96 of SCU, along with an Ursa-sized rover. Anything larger than that won't fit. I'm not going to try and ram vehicles in there that aren't designed to. I just have no interest in that. So you can, if you wanted to, have extra cargo. If not, you've got options for a ground vehicle. So flexibility, we like flexibility because it offers up roles for you to fulfill during your career in the verse. Moving up towards the neck of the ship again, we are in the cargo grid area of the ship, which is, again, this is cool. I like these little character building areas of ships, right? So we have the cargo grid and the walkway. Is it necessary? No. Is it cool? Yes. Therefore, I'm all in. You know, anything to give a ship a distinct flavour and feel from its competitors is always welcome in my eyes. And I think that is a little touch that helps sell that, you know, helps give that immersion. Like your decisions have to be informed when buying ships, or whether it's in-game or on the website. So we move up then from the cargo and walkway. We come to sort of midsection, I think. Well, no, technically it's the neck of the ship. We have the airlock, which is great for space to space station, ship docking, all the stuff, EVAing, all that cool stuff. And then what did surprise me, separate armory at the top, bottom floor. That's also a great little touch, just to have your crew have their stuff stowed away, easy to get to, kind of. If you're in a pinch, maybe not, you know, if you're all on the top floor, but it's still a very nice touch to have an armory on board a ship. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to with the Starlancer Max, and I think its design layout internally, I think, is excellent. I have no real complaints at all. I think orgs, small, large and medium, this could easily be a very common ship, especially the TAC variant as well. Minimal crew, a lot of room, extremely well laid out internally. There really is a lot going for this ship. In terms of competitors, I don't really see anything that I mean, Constellation isn't big enough. 600i. It's not the same, you know. In terms of constellations and 600i's, is there actually a Carrack? Because is the Carrack the closest competitor? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it until just this very moment. But then the Odyssey is the competitor to the Carrack, right? So it's very interesting to see where this ship fits in. Maybe the Caterpillar. There we go. I think that's more realistic. I think the Drake Cat is more of a competitor to the Max. Yeah. Yes. I'm gonna go with the Cat. Let me know what you think. But that's just off the fly, off the cusp thinking there. So internally then, we know it's extreme. That was a little bit of a waffle. I'm sorry. Internally then, we know it's extremely well laid out. At least it is in my opinion. And the fact that we have a very generous crew quarters. We have a very generous living area with spacepool, because spacepool is cool. There's a lot going for this ship. What's interesting is I actually kind of want to see what the internals are going to look like in terms of its trim, i.e. its interior design, which I imagine will be similar to that of the Hull C. So if any of you have been in the Hull A, Hull C, because it's the most modern kind of freelance MISC ship that we've had for a while, I think it will share that same sort of internal trim, is my theory there. Don't hold me to that because it could be different, but I think it would be very similar. So we have some fewer images here, a fewer extra images, I should say, that I managed to get hold of. So very spacious, like the Odyssey. You can see the turrets, operation seats, the cockpit and everything there. So there is obviously the concept images, so take it with a pinch of salt, but kind of very generous internally with its space. Some will say that's wasted space. I disagree. It's only wasted. A room with nothing in it is wasted space. But if you've got a room with stuff in it, but it isn't rammed with nonsense, that's still not wasted space. That's utilized space. That's completely different. I think this is generous. There's stuff on board the ship to function fully, easily, and you have plenty of space to do that. Components and managing and repairing and onboard fires and all of that stuff, I kind of like the fact that you have room to maneuver. Now, some components on the bigger ships you can't swap out, unfortunately, but you're still going to have to run around putting out fires and repairing modules and components and things of that nature. I just like the idea. Also, they have to bear in mind that FPS is a thing and you could get boarded. Now, if the ship was extremely tight, it'd be quite difficult to do FPS combat, right? So that is something that they do bear in mind, I believe. I don't know how much of a bearing that has, but nonetheless, I still think the interior is going to be something to really look forward to. Of course, we won't know more until I get my hands on it, until we all get our hands on it, if you're picking one up or picked one up. But you just won't know. I just think that the Starlancer really has breathed a very nice breath of fresh air into MISC as a whole. You know, I really do feel that this is a gateway into how awesome the Odyssey is going to turn out as well, the bigger brother. Very much looking forward to that ship, as you guys know. But yeah, internally and externally, the Starlancers are shaping up to be something super cool. Okay, moving on to the specifications of the Starlancer Max. It's quite interesting with the layout. We've discussed, I think internally it's great. Cargo wise, so we have 224 SCU. Okay, don't forget that if you don't carry a vehicle, an Ursa or smaller in the back, that will free up 96 SCU. So I imagine most players, I can't speak for everyone of course, but for myself I think I would just have a vehicle in there, just because you never quite know when one might need said ground vehicle. Okay, I think I would probably throw an Ursa in there, probably the Nursa, because this variant doesn't have a medical bed unlike the TAC. So having a Nursa in there and still having the ability to carry cargo, again, this ship gives us a lot of flexibility, which I appreciate. Okay, So let's move on then to some of the components that this ship will have. So the power plant, it has 2 size 2s. Quantum drive is 1 size 2. It has 1 size 2 jump drive. Thrusters, it has 3 main and 6 VTOL. And the nav thrusters, 2 retro and 6 maneuvering thrusters. It has more than attack, I believe, to help it shift weight, if I recall correctly. Obviously, I can't pinpoint where they all are from the images we have. I'll have to get the ship in my hands and give it a detailed going over to establish whether most of those thrusters have been added. For weapons, we have, well, as a cargo runner goes, quite a lot. We have pilot-controlled weapons, which are dual-link turrets, 2 size 4s. So that's the classic Freelancer weapon systems found on this, just, you know, added to the Starlancer. Why not? They work, they're great. Turrets, 2 remote turrets, 2 size 4s. Missiles, we have 4 times bespoke quad launchers with 4 size 3s. So you're not going to be able to swap those out because they are, of course, bespoke, but it's really not an issue. This thing is quite toothy, isn't it, for a cargo runner? Very well defended, it has to be said, and probably easier to defend than the Drake Cat. So we have to bear that in mind. Here we have the actual specifications. Okay, so it has a length of 83 meters, a width 52, height 16, 224 SCU, 4-man crew, including the seats that we went over. Life support is 1 times size 2. Quantum fuel, 1 tank. Fuel tanks, 1. Power plant size 2. 2 of those. Quantum drive size 2. Jump drive size 2. We've been over this. Avionics. Okay. Computers, it will have 1 times size 2. Radar size 2. Relay systems, it will have 3. Shield generator size 3. 1 times size 3. 2 size 2 coolers. Gravity generator, fuel intakes, a battery, and then of course the weapon system. So components wise, I have no complaints for a ship of this size. Obviously the game is consistently changing, so expect things to change in the future in terms of ship balancing. But on launch, it should launch with those sized components. I imagine they've kind of dialed that in anticipation for its launch. Moving on then, I think the ship looks great inside and out, as discussed, but we have to understand how they came to this design. As you can see here, what they cleverly did is essentially they get a chassis and they amalgamate and merge previous and or current MISC designs, and that's how we got to the ship that we have today, right? So you can see in the top left there, that's clearly a Starfarer merged into something else, and they just simply mix and match to keep the design language of MISC. It's a very clever way of doing it, to be honest. I kind of appreciate how they came to this design. Like I said, the only thing that makes me... I actually photo edited the wings off the Starlancer to see if it looked better, and I kind of think it did, sort of, but also not. And then when I unedited them, I thought, no, it looks better with the wings. So I'm not sure if this Starlancer actually needed to keep the wings, you know, the winglets leading from the edges of the engines there. I think it looks great without them, but also kind of weird without them because it doesn't quite fit in to the MISC design, right? So that was just something that I did off my own back because I'm weird like that, you know, get used to it. I'm a weird guy. So yeah, it's still very cool, there's no doubts about it. And if they do add all this greenery, I will also be quite happy with that because that helps breathe some life into the immersion that we get from some of these ships, right? I think immersion is a big part of it, and I like ships that have character. For example, you guys know, I say all the time, the Drake Caterpillar is my favourite ship, just to fly around in. Not even particularly doing anything, it's just full of character. That ship, I absolutely love it. And I'm hoping that the Starlancers capture that, and I'm sure they will because they are fairly unique. Now, of course, they are going to launch with paints, and as you can see here, there's a fair few. You may like them, you may not. I don't really like them, personally. I think they don't quite suit the ship. There is only one that I like, and that's the blue sapphire paint scheme that you will be able to find on the Max, and I think that one is the most slick Mac Daddy out of this one here. I think is the best. So that would be down to you if you want to paint your ship. However, this ship will soon be here. I cannot wait for its arrival. I will be all over it like a rash, but I will take my time with it. I will not rush out content for the sake of views or any of that. I don't care about that. I want to do it right. I want to give it justice. If it's an hour-long video, it's an hour-long video. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm very much looking forward to it. This arrives IAE this year. Okay, so we've covered the Max. We've established it's going to be a great ship, internally, externally. Now it's time to talk about the Starlancer tech. Now there isn't as much information as I would like to deep dive into it. Okay, so I will do the best with what I have. Now the Starlancer tech, I know for a fact, is going to be a popular ship. A lot of people are hyped for this ship. This is an AC-130 gunship in space, and it looks freaking cool. Like the Starlancer Max is also freaking cool, but this is even more cool because more guns equals more funds, right? Fact. So I've got plans for this because I've bought this Max and the tech. I did some maneuvering with my fleet, as I'm sure many of you have, and I think this ship paired with a Nautilus is going to be so good. And so good because it's like a combat patrol spaceship. Right? I love that idea. Just perusing the verse. Let's pretend we've got our bases built, okay? And you're on patrol. You know there's danger out there. Maybe you found some rival org. Maybe your org is setting up a no-fly zone. A couple of tanks flying around with snub fighters on board, paired with a Nautilus, just to mine off your area. The possibilities are endless. I think the tech is going to be superb. Obviously, it's packing quite a serious amount of firepower. It's like a bigger Redeemer, except for I hope they don't hit it with the nerf stick like they did with the Redeemer. I think a Redeemer, an attack, a Nautilus, and a Hammerhead in a large org, that's quite some task force you've got to try and chew your way through, right, to attack another base or another org. So that's going to be extremely interesting, especially if that org has a space station that they're trying to defend. Maybe you've got the space station. The tech is going to be a go-to combat patrol vessel. I honestly believe that, and it looks awesome. So, as you can see, this variant has the ability to carry a snub fighter, which I think is a great idea. That's a nice touch. Designed to fit the Furies. I like the Furies. I never really use snubs all too often, but I think in attack, I think I would use a snub. Now it depends. They didn't say it's just solely for the Furies, okay? So I don't know if you'd get another snub in there, but I think it's only logical that I would take the Furies anyway, because for what they are absolutely brimming to the teeth with death and destruction. And if you're in a combat ship, which is designed to breed death and destruction, you probably want to take a snub fighter, which is also bred to breed death and destruction, would be my sort of initial thoughts on that. So I think that's a very nice touch for the tech. Okay, so now we need to... Now there isn't a lot of internal information regarding the tech. So in terms of the internal ship layout, we have like a blueprint that we'll go over, but it's not as detailed as what we saw earlier from the Starlancer Max. Now, what we can take from the Max and apply to the tech is probably the trim of what it might look like, and more than likely sort of up front, the cockpit and the neck of the ship, etc. might be similar, but it will not be identical. I don't think the rest of the ship is going to be tailored quite differently, just because of the snub hangar. We also have drop seats, and of course we have this really cool sort of weapons room, which looks incredible. Very much looking forward to the tech's arrival. But there are a few things we can talk about regarding how this ship might operate. 4-man crew again, probably some remote turrets operated in the same place, I would have thought, neck of the ship, that sort of region. But the firepower is going to be insane on this thing, and internally, from the images that we do have, yeah, it looks really good. So we'll start externally then, because we don't really have too much, but we'll go over them anyway. So we have the remote operated missile turrets, and then we have here the remote turrets, remote operated size 4 dual mounts. So let's take a look and see what that might look like internally in this particular area of the ship. So as you can see, there seems to be a seat, and either side of said seat is either a wealth of ammunition and a, what I can only assume is a belt feeding mechanism to the weaponry. That looks awesome. Okay, that is so cool. I know it's just a picture, I know it's just a seat, but it looks military, it looks combat, it looks ready for action, and I think they've captured that well. I doubt very much though it's going to be bright orange. I'll be very surprised if that's the colour scheme they go for with the orange, but it is just a concept image. So as you can see, we got what looks like Master Chief sat in the combat seat there, with another dude about to go to war, and again surrounded by, are they ammunition drums? I'm not entirely sure what they are. Possibly, I don't know, but the fact that there is a big belt feeding mechanism next to the turret, I don't think is any sort of, you know, coincidence. Very much looking forward to seeing what the internals of the tech looks like, because I really do think MISC are going full out military mode, which we all enjoy, right? So let's then move on to the other features to be found on board. So we have our down here manually operated size 5 dual turret. So no remote turret here, that would be someone sat, and they're symmetrical, so there's 2 on each side. Then we have another remote operated size 4 dual mount turret. Okay, so that will be operated via one of the terminals. Then we have the size 4 dual link turrets, pilot controlled and co-pilot controlled. At least I hope they're pilot controlled and don't do what they did with the Corsair and gave them to the co-pilot, which, you know, there's no logic behind that, in my opinion, at all. So I wasn't happy about that, but it is what it is. Bedspoke quad rack launchers with 4 size 3 missiles. Then we do get a little snippet of information regarding the internals. So obviously up front we have the cockpit. Nothing untoward there. That's where we need to operate the ship. Just behind that then we have the onboard habitation. That does seem to be roughly the same place as the Max, I believe. Then we have the common room. So I'm not sure about that. That looks a little bit lower than sort of mid-deck, if I'm honest. Control room, and then we have the 8 jump seats. So jump seats, was not expecting that. That's a nice touch, because now you can now deploy troops to a certain area. Again, with my hypothesis of how you might use this ship earlier, combat patrols. Maybe you found someone's base, maybe they're not paying attention, maybe you want to drop off a recce team to infiltrate, capture and kill. You know, all the cool stuff. So that's a very nice welcome addition. Also, they double up for, you know, casualty evacuation to get people out. You can do emergency pickups and emergency drop-offs. A whole wealth of gameplay options just opened by adding 8 drop seats. So that is very cool. Moving on from the drop seats then, we do have a medical facility on board as well, because they said at the time at SitCon that, you know, if you are dropping combat troops in and off a hot planet where there's a contested zone or things of that nature, there's a highly likely chance that someone's going to catch a bullet or laser beam in the face, and when that happens it tends to leave a mark, and having a medical facility on board to treat that mark on your face I think is very important. So as a combat ship goes at the moment, I think having all these turrets, the pilot has weapons, you've got drop seats, you've got a snub fighter, especially if you take a Fury, there's a potential for oodles, and I'm not a man to use a word like oodles lightly, oodles of scenarios in which the tech will find itself useful to you and your fleet and or your org, depending on how you depend to operate around the verse. So medbeds are always welcome in my eyes because, yeah, they are literally lifesavers. And then finally, we have the snub fighter, which we've previously discussed. I think that's a great idea. Whether or not we'll be able to get any other sort of vehicle in there, I don't know. And now, finally, we have the engineering room at the back, which makes sense. So similar again in the layout to the Max. Most of your components will be there. Not all of them, though. So, fairly impressive. A few tweaks in terms of how they've managed to fit everything into the TAC, including a hangar for a snub fighter. The drop seats, I think, are an excellent addition. I think what the TAC actually affords players now, especially if you're just a small group of friends and you're not in a large org and had no intention of being in a large org, you now have a ship that I think is more than capable of being run by 4 people quite easily. I think it's also going to be effective at what it does. It gives those I'm not calling anyone smaller-minded, I apologise. Those smaller groups now have a ship that will be an effective combat force without having to worry about crew size all too much. And I think that is a huge pro, I really do. So that's quite impressive. Okay, so we've talked about the TAC, we've talked about the Max. It's all looking very good for the Starlancers, but we do need to cover, of course, the specifications for this Starlancer TAC. I think there's a lot going for the TAC, as I previously mentioned. I think it really does appeal to the smaller groups, because sometimes I feel like the solo player and I feel like the smaller orgs and the smaller groups of friends that just want to chill out kind of get left out a little bit. It's all about bigger and better. Sometimes, you know, you just don't want that, you know. Okay, specifications then. General, length 83, 52 and 16, so pretty much the same. It still has 96 SCU of cargo, which is more than enough for what the ship does. It has a max crew of 7, okay? And those are the stations, of course, including the jump seats. Life support, 1 size 2. Fuel tanks we have. Propulsion, it has thrusters, 3 main, 4 VTOL, 2 retro 16 main. Joint drive is size 2 quantum, and 1 size 3 power plant. Okay. Avionics, 1 size 2. It has 1 size 2 radar and 3 times relays. And systems, we have shield generators, which are 2 size 3s, 1 size 3 cooler. Gravity generator is a 1 size 2. And we have our fuel takes, our batteries, which are 2 size 2s, and then of course all the weapons. Batteries are important because you're going to rely on them should any of your systems fail, and it's good to know that they've taken that into consideration, so we'll see what they end up looking like when we get those in the game. Okay, and finally, we have the Starlancer build. Now, unfortunately, there just isn't enough information for me to want to make a video on this ship yet. That is not to say that I'm not going to. Of course I am. Base building is something I've been harping on about for ages. It is the end game for me. It is something pivotal to most of us. It is incredibly important for me to discuss this ship. However, not yet. Now, the Galaxy, I'm sure you've heard, had a little bit of drama around it where they said it wasn't. And I deleted my most successful video, which was the Galaxy, because I didn't want to mislead people when they said, nope, it's not going to make bases. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I was stupid and deleted it. My bad. So, a little bit annoyed about that. And then they came back and said, yeah, it will make bases. So, I'm probably going to have to revisit the Galaxy. Now, I might tie it in with the BLD. We know the BLD is going to be a base builder. It has drones that sit on these arms. It's going to be awesome. And if it's anything like what we've seen regarding the TAC and the Max, then it's certainly something to look forward to, but I am going to make this a separate video all on its own. So there we go, guys. That was my video on the Starlancers with the build to come. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what buttons to press, and I of course will have more Star Citizen content en route to your location very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy. Cheers.